You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
I'm a match, she kerosene. You know she gon' burn down everything. She an arsonist in her pastime, and I've been burned for the last time.
Hi everybody, today's guest is Kevin Bivona, guitarist for the Los Angeles, California ska punk band, The Interrupters. It was great to catch up with my old friend and talk about their hit single, She's Kerosene, taken from their 2018 album, Fight the Good Fight. The idea for She's Kerosene started out as a voice memo between Kevin and lead singer Amy Interrupter. In that initial voice memo, you can hear the chorus pretty much as it ended up being on the record. The song wasn't inspired by one direct instance or situation, but by many different experiences and hardships throughout Amy's life. I love the imagery of the verses, and I feel like it's the perfect blend of angst mixed with killer hooks and pop sensibilities. Kevin tells a really cool story about how producer Tim Armstrong provided the bridge part for the song. He also mentioned that Brett Gurewitz from Bad Religion and Epitaph Records was the first person ever to tell him that this song is a hit, in reference to the initial time he heard She's Kerosene. And Kevin credits mixer Tom Lord-Alge with making an executive decision in the 11th hour behind the mixing desk that truly made the song stronger. For all this and much more, stick around.
Hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast.
Well, I'm a big fan of your show as a songwriter and a studio nerd, and like it's the only show I could think of where you talk about like who mixed the track and like how Mike's set up and all that kind of stuff. I love that kind of stuff. So thank you for doing what you do.
Well, I appreciate this, and for the listeners, I want to set this up a little bit. I absolutely, it's no secret. I probably wear it in most of my videos I put online. I'm always wearing an Interrupters hoodie or a shirt. One of my favorite bands, and I mean that. You guys are just, and gal, are great. Not just as a band, but as people. Known you for probably 6 or 7 years, right around the time I think your first record came out. Yep. We've done a bunch of touring together, and can't say enough good things about you. And I'm really stoked that not only are you on today, but we're going to talk about arguably at this point your biggest track, She's Kerosene.
Definitely. And yeah, I was thinking about it. Thank you guys for taking a chance on a new band like us. Our new record had been out maybe 2 months when you took us on that tour. We went all the way across Canada, which is not an easy tour, but thank you for taking us on that tour, because it literally like made us so much stronger as a band and almost killed us probably, but like we came out the other end. So
didn't we drag your ass up there in the middle of the winter?
Yeah. And it's so funny, from Southern California, none of us had ever driven in snow. And I remember we were driving through the Canadian Rockies, and one of the twins was driving, and he goes, "Oh my God, snow. I've never seen snow." And Amy's like, "Why are you driving then?" But we had so much fun. I mean, like there was a lot of like physical injuries on that tour and just gnarliness, but like it was a good time. It was definitely, we learned a lot.
Yeah, well, I don't know if, and I imagine if you guys are a band long enough, which you will be, you'll get questions like this. But it's so weird being in a band as long as I have. Journalists sometimes they want to get dirt, or they want to just dig up stuff, and you guys have just blown up over the course of the last year and a half. Of course, you had landed the Green Day tour last summer that unfortunately hasn't happened yet. But I'll get these questions from journalists, so about some of the new bands out there, like the Interrupters, like, does it bother you, their exposure and what they're getting? And you guys have been doing this for so long, and I tell them all the same thing. I'm like, well, first of all, if I didn't like them and they were jerks, maybe a little bit it would bother me. But do you know how nice they are and how good and deserving of people they're? And I mean that. You guys, if anybody deserves a success, it is you. So I want to jump into this track.
Well, thank you for saying that.
No, I mean it. This song, for me, it was immediate. I remember when I first heard it, I was like, okay, it's one of those songs where you only have to hear it once to like it. You don't. It doesn't have it doesn't have to grow on you.
Oh yeah, we really beat that chorus to death for sure. So
4 times.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So I mean, for us too, it's a special song. Even from the very inception of it, it was one of those songs that, you know, we kind of had a special place in our heart, and you know, we would have never expected it to do what it did. I mean, we knew that in some way it would change our lives, just because Amy had that feeling about, like, if I write about this particular thing, it's gonna change our lives, and I don't know what's gonna happen, but it was really important to her to get this kind of a message out, and and then the rest is kind of like history in the making still, I guess.
Well, you know, your band has a ton of great songs. I don't think there's a song of yours that I think is bad or I don't like, but you know what I'm talking about, where you get a record and it kind of, you know, maybe the 6th or 7th track on the album, it just kind of would skip over, and then one day it came on, you know, on shuffle, and then wait a second, and then it became your favorite song. Or, you know, songs have to grow on you sometimes. And
for sure.
This one was immediate. So the previous record, Say It Out Loud, came out in June 24th of 2016, and Fight the Good Fight came out roughly 2 years to the day. It was actually June 29th of 2018. So, of course, in those 2 years, you guys were touring your heads off. When was the song written? Was it written on the road? Was it something you had for a while, or was this specifically written for Fight the Good Fight?
Well, since I knew we were going to talk about it, I kind of went back through my voice memos, and it was interesting because, like you were saying, like, we were touring so much. So we put out Say It Out Loud. We went immediately on the Warped Tour. Then we did like a headline tour in the fall. And then right in January was when we did our first tour with Green Day, and that was in Europe. So like, we get these amazing opportunities to just go on the road, and we didn't really think about writing. We write on the road, and we're always thinking about, like, okay, this would be a good song, this would be a good song, but getting down and doing the work is something that, like, we usually do at home or in the studio. But 2017 was a weird year because I actually left for 2 months to go on tour with Rancid in Europe. And in the States when they did their tour, Dropkick Murphys. So, like, it was the most time we had off as the Interrupters, you know? And when I came home, I remember coming home, and Amy had a bunch of lyric ideas, and I had a bunch of kind of, like, chord ideas and kind of lyric ideas, and we just went into writing mode, and we had about 3 weeks of writing mode, and then we had 3 weeks booked in the studio with Tim in September of that year, which was going to be, like, pre-production, you know what I mean? So that was one of the first songs that was written, and it was the first one demoed. And I have the date, too, because I found the voice memo of when we first wrote it. It was August 31st, 2017 is when the first idea came. Yeah.
So roughly a year before, 10 months before the record came out. So was this an idea that you specifically wrote? Was it just the music, or was there a lyric yet? I know you had talked about Amy was starting to write some lyrics.
It was really interesting. A lot of our songs, when Amy and I write together, it's not like we like pick up guitars and go into a room and say, okay, let's write a song. It's literally conversations we're having. And I remember we were having a conversation, and one of us was like, she's Kerosene and you're the flame or something. And it was just like, and then we kind of stopped and we're like, dang, that sounds like a lyric. And so we grabbed the guitar, sit down, and wrote the hook in like probably less than 5 minutes. And then we had that. So we get out the phone, as we usually do, just to document it, you know, and did a voice memo, and we're kind of doing gibberish verses and kind of had getting the idea together. But we knew it was a good chorus. I remember too, because I took our dog out back later that night, and the twins' house is right there.
Right.
And I knocked on their back door, and I was like, listen to this voice memo. This is pretty cool, right? And yeah, so I remember being pretty stoked about it, like, immediately.
That's awesome. So, you know, when I was researching the song, and a lot of times bands will do this, bands will just split the writing. I noticed that it was credited to everybody in the band and Tim Armstrong. So who was the main writers? I'm assuming you and Amy.
Yeah, so if you look at the Interrupters' entire catalog, it's split that way.
Yeah.
We don't really nickel and dime song to song. It was just kind of a thing that we decided on the first record to be easy, because Tim, as a producer, is so, like, versatile in what he brings to the table. sometimes we'll have a complete idea written and he'll just say, wow, that sounds great, record that, and maybe try it up faster tempo, slower tempo. Sometimes he'll pick up a guitar and be like, hey, try this chord change under that lyric instead, or like, what about saying this instead of that? Like, it kind of depends on the song. So we figured that out pretty early on, that it's like, let's do, you know, a blanket split, and so it kind of just depends on the song. For this particular one, I remember Amy and I wrote the hook and had the idea for the song brought in, but the bridge is a whole other story that goes back 10 years, actually.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about that when we get to the bridge. You've piqued my interest. Something here, and I didn't know how much Tim was involved with the lyrics, because as I'm reading this, and it never dawned on me. It never dawned on me till I was staring at the lyrics, and how many times have I heard this song live and on the radio, etc. But I noticed it's from the tense of like, you know, I'm a match, she's kerosene. So,
yeah.
You know, and you would think almost that Amy would say maybe he's kerosene if it was a love song in that instance. So I thought maybe Tim had written the lyric. And then was there ever talk of having it he, or was it always she?
Okay, so that's a funny point, because when we wrote it, the conversation was she's kerosene, and it just sounded so cool.
Right.
So then we were like, well, what if right before the chorus you said, he said, you know what I mean? And then we kind of got the idea of making it like a storytelling song, just about, you know, like a narcissistic, abusive relationship where someone's just trying to escape from that cycle. And it just sang better. She's kerosene. I don't know. It just had like a, you know how sometimes your cadence and the way it feels is just right. And
right. You know, and if Amy was talking about herself, like, you know, in first person, she's kerosene, but she's talking about herself, it would work. But that's not what's here. And that's why I had to ask. And, you know, women could certainly be in love with women. Men could be in love with men. I don't mean it in that aspect. But,
100%.
You know, just looking at songs as is, it stuck out at me. I was like, wait a second, you know. So there was discussion about that, but you just thought she's kerosene sang better.
Yeah, and it just felt right. And also, we like to do storytelling songs where we have characters. There's like always a protagonist and an antagonist, and we like to play with that style of songwriting because some of our favorite songs are stories in that respect. So it was yeah, it was pretty easy. Like, it's so weird. We just didn't want to change the course once we had it. Here, we could pause really quick because I just want to ask, do you want me to play just a bit of the voice memo into the mic?
For our listeners, we don't even need to pause. Yes, get it. Let's play it right now.
Okay, here we go. So I'll just show you.
We don't do any edits here on Chris DeMakes a Podcast.
Okay. Well, I just didn't know if that was something you did, but scope it. This is just
this is awesome. This is actually a first, Kevin. No one's played us a voice memo.
Don't get your hopes up. I'm super pitchy, and it's just a phone voice memo, but the idea is there. So I just want to play it. Here we go.
I love it.
August 31st, 2017.
All right.
1, 2, 3, 4. I'm a match. She's kerosene, and you know you're gonna burn down everything. She's an arsonist in a pastime. I've been burned for the last time. Whoa, I've been burned for the last time. Whoa, I've been burned for the last time.
All right. I gotta stop before the gibberish verses start.
Dude, that's the song.
Yeah, so that's what I mean is
the song.
We had it, you know what I mean? And it's so funny because a lot of this particular song came with ease in a weird way because that was it. We had the hook. We kind of did that voice memo. We put it away. We show up to pre-production to do it, and it was like the first song we did. And it's just every step of this song's way, it was just kind of like we didn't have to overthink it, which was a huge blessing for what it ended up being.
When did Tim first hear it? Did he hear that phone demo, or did he hear it when you went into pre-production?
No, so basically we take our phone demos, right? We try to realize them and learn them and like wrap our head and like know how to do the harmony. And then like when we pitch a song to Tim, usually I'll grab a guitar. We'll kind of sit there and he'll sit across from us and he'll have a guitar and kind of like watch what I'm doing. And we'll be like, okay, here's the idea. And then we just go into it hoping like, you know, it ignites something because, you know, when we're in a creative space and we're all in the room, we always follow like wherever like the happy creative place is. Like, so if you pitch an idea and someone's like, yeah, that's pretty cool, then it's kind of like, all right, well, what about this one? All right, what about this one? But this is one of the ones that were like there, and it was just kind of, it felt like a no-brainer, you know, all along the way.
Okay. Well, and for our listeners out there, haven't done this in a while. I know I use the term pre-production a lot, and pre-production is when a band will go into a rehearsal space or even a studio with a producer, and they'll be working out the last-minute kinks of a song before they actually press record to go record those songs. So that's what I mean by pre-production. And so, what did Tim think of it? The first reaction?
He dug it. I know his first reaction. The funny thing is when we pitched it, we also had questions, like right away. We were like, what do you think of it? How are we going to get from here to here? Because he helped us kind of orchestrate those hits, that bum, 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 that goes into the chorus.
Yes.
And also that big drum fill that happens, because it just felt like, since the chord change is the same in the chorus as it is in the verse, except that I think they last a little longer in the verse, we needed a breath before the verse started, and he just was like, Jesse, just do a crazy drum fill. So Jesse did the crazy drum fill, and then the first time Amy hears it, she goes, whoa, and that was her idea. We laid that over it. So yeah, so we already were like piecing it together.
Those hits before the chorus are such a great launch pad. It's so perfect, and that drum fill is just, it's so exciting. So much energy. It's a great part. I love that the track, again, starts out with the chorus. It's essentially chorus one. I'm calling it an intro chorus here. It starts out just, why mess around? It just, boom, I'm a match. She's kerosene. You know she's going to burn down everything. She's an arsonist in her pastime, and I've been burned for the last time. And then the band comes in, you know, drums and bass and everything. Time, whoa, I've been burned for the last time. Time, whoa, I've been burned for the last time. And then that whoa that you're talking about, that Amy thought of, such a youthful energy to that thing. It's just, and when you guys play it live, I just hear the whole crowd, whoa, huh. It's such a cool part. Do you remember when she came up with that?
I do, actually, because you know what's so funny is she has a lot of ideas that come from almost this like guttural, like caveman instinct of like all the like who's and like just all the big punchy gang vocal things in our music is always stuff that like, it's almost like she can't verbalize the intensity she hears in her head, so she just will make a noise, and then we all end up making the noise, and it kind of, it gets the point across. So that was what that was, and it's pretty funny because we all went around one mic and just did it, you know, because we were just all excited.
It's one of those hooks within a song that you don't really realize how important it is. It's like the Blur song, the woo-hoo.
Yeah,
you know? It's like if it's not there, it's not the same song.
Oh, and you better believe when we get into rehearsal, if it doesn't sound right, we're gonna play that part like 8 times in a row until it has that intensity. You know what I mean?
Right.
She's kind of like our band leader and our band coach, where it's just like, you know, we may be like, it sounds fine. She's like, nope, we gotta do it again. It's not good enough. She has this like perfectionist thing that really like has made all of us better players and just a better live band.
That's great. Do you remember, did the chorus always start the song off? Was there any intro or any part before the vocal came in that you thought could be an intro, or did it always start as is?
It always started as is. Like I said, when we got in pre-production the first day, we came up with those hits, and that was going to be it.
So after the whoa and the huh, we get into the whoa huh. We get into the first verse, and again, these lyrics were something that you and Amy came up with together. Did Tim have any say in the lyrics?
Not until the bridge, which is an interesting story. But I remember this first verse, we came home the night of pre-production and wrote the first verse, and it was done. And then we didn't write the second verse until almost 3 months later when we actually were doing the record.
Well, and they're both as strong as the other. You know, as I've analyzed songs, and even before I started this podcast, I'm sure you can attest, there's some times when a first verse is just so good, and you get to the second verse and it just doesn't live up to it. And the second verse lives up to the first. And I love the lyrics. And you mentioned earlier about storytelling, having an antagonist and a protagonist. And man, I love the story here, and I love the way that it's articulated. Verse 1, it started out like any other morning. The sky was red. He took it as a warning. She hit the hive. Now the bees are swarming. He played the victim till the crowd starts forming. She got a history of making a scene, yeah. She tells a story. She's gaslighting like he's the executioner and she's the queen, and he's the one whose neck is in the guillotine.
Yes.
Online, the lyric said, she tells a story, she gets right in.
Yeah, like, no, there's a lot of wrong lyrics online. Even a couple of the he's and she's you didn't get 100% right. But that's just, I think, the nature of the internet nowadays. It's so funny because we make a point to print all of our lyrics in our vinyl, but a lot of people stream it and listen to it online, so they kind of fill in the gaps.
I actually had to go to the Jimmy Kimmel live version to hear her saying she's gaslighting to know what that lyric was. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that was a funny thing because we were talking about that a lot around the time, and it was such an interesting word to put into a song. I don't know of any other songs that use the word gaslighting, or at least in 2017 or up until then.
That's a more current word.
Yeah, not any that I'm aware of. But it was an important word to the story because it's kind of what the whole song's about, is being gaslit. And also, the interesting thing too, writing lyrics for this song and having the chorus already done was like imagery of fire, heat, flames, light, all of that. It made it really fun. You have like a nice like palette to pick from, and that's kind of why it's like the sky was red, just all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And was this a story you guys were writing, you and Amy, or was this actually about something? Like where's the idea of that first verse?
Absolutely.
Lyric?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Well, the interesting thing, Amy's been through some pretty crazy stuff in her life, and she's got some stories and she's been in some rough situations with people, you know what I mean? So this isn't an exact story of a rough situation she was in with someone, but the feeling that she got and how it felt for her, she wrote a story with the same kind of elements, you know what I mean? Being gaslit, being somebody who's kind of attacking you but playing the victim, those types of kind of like abusive tactics. She just really wanted to like write a song about that, so we kind of made it, rather than make it like a personal first person thing, it was easier to tell in a story, and so that's where the story aspect comes from.
And I just want to touch on the production a little bit. I love the way your band sounds, particularly on this record. There's such separation with the tracks. It sounds like where it came from, some of the third wave ska punk, Rancid, it has that type of youthful throwback in a sense, but at the same time, it sounds current. The production sounds current. It doesn't sound dated. How much did Tim bring to the table with that? I know you're an engineer. You produce stuff. Like I said, the separation, and for the listeners, when I mean by separation, just the instruments are just all separated. There's the drums. They're right here. The bass is here. Nothing. It's like almost a perfectly clean mix.
Yeah. Oh, well, definitely the mix is really good. So the interesting thing about this record is, like I said, we did the 3 weeks of pre-production in September. Then we went back on tour. We went to South America, and then we did a whole East Coast tour. We get back around Christmas time. We take the holidays off, and then we go in the studio to do the album, air quotes, in January. So, but the problem with this record, well, not problem, but the interesting thing is we had a release date before we stepped in the studio. They're like, we want this record out in June because you guys are going on the Warped Tour. And we were like, okay, we have some songs written, we have some pre-production. That doesn't seem too unrealistic. But there was all these obstacles that kind of kept hitting us. And we were just up against the clock. But we went in the studio in January to do the actual record. And one thing that was a little different this time around is when we did pre-production, we invited Brett Gurewitz into the studio when we had some songs demoed from the label, and amazing set of ears, legendary mixer, producer, obviously Bad Religion, one of our biggest influences. So he comes in to listen to songs, and he kind of like gave us his feedback, and he kind of rated them. And I remember playing him the pre-production demo for Kerosene, and when it ended, he goes, I think that song's a hit song.
Mad Magazine.
Advertising mascots.
B-movie posters.
And cartoons.
Oh yeah, can't forget cartoons. If you get the funky connection that ties these pop culture gems together, you'll dig Two Designers Walk Into a Bar.
See, we're a couple of creatively curious pals living between the bookends of grand museums and dive bars.
Hey, you know the place, the sweet spot where highbrow and lowbrow become drinking buddies.
So join our barroom chats as we talk influential work and uncover stories of how the familiar became iconic. Think behind the music for the stuff we love.
Check out our website at twodesignerswalkintoabar.com.
And listen wherever you get your podcasts or visit evergreenpodcasts.com.
And we were just like, we'd never heard anyone really say, I mean, we use those words sometimes to be like, well, it sounds like a hit, man. But I mean, come on. We're just like, it's different when someone like him says it. And you're like, whoa. So that kind of gave us pause to like not overthink it and change it too much. So when we went in to do the record, it's like, don't change the bass line, don't change the tempo, don't change the key, because we do that. Sometimes we'll do pre-production, we'll go in the studio and we'll be like, let's try this one punk instead of ska, let's try this one a couple steps down. We do all that kind of stuff. But so we went in the studio to record this, and to speak to the production and what was different this time around is Tim's studio has a 24-track Studer tape machine. And he was like, I really think, he goes, we did Out Come the Wolves on tape, and it's got this kind of like, it just kind of gives it this punchy timelessness. And he's like, you guys should really consider doing this record on tape. So we were like, yeah, we're super down. So when we went in to do the record in January, we had the tape machine, and we bought, a few reels of tape. And it's just a different approach. As you know, coming up in the tape world, like, if you're on the floor doing takes, it's like, I remember the first time the engineer said, hey, so this reel's done. Do you want to record over that last take, or do you want me to change reels? And we're in there with our instruments on, and I'm like, oh, I guess let's record over that last take because I don't want to stop right now, And then we're having to make these decisions on the spot. But, yeah, it's interesting because we always do our drums, bass, guitar live. But this time, since we had the pre-production done and the song written, we had Amy in a side room singing with us. So She's Kerosene in particular, all of the vocals in all of the courses is live with the band, which is a really interesting thing we'd never done before, where it's like, if you isolate her vocal track, you could hear the drums bleeding through, the wall. So it's the four of us having a moment, recording it to tape. And that was the main different thing about this record. Obviously, we dumped it all into Pro Tools later, but that was
Well, that's when I was going to ask, at what point did you dump it? When everything was pretty much recorded, and then, of course, you could do some editing in Pro Tools, but the main thing that you're going for, that tape saturation and that sound that Tim was speaking of, you're going to achieve with tape.
Absolutely. And yeah, drums, bass, guitars, lead vocal, maybe like a guitar overdub and some piano. And then we dump into Pro Tools and do like background vocals and percussion and that kind of stuff.
So the lead vocal was cut on tape as well.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm assuming Amy had to take some takes, because although I guess from the tape, then you could put it in Pro Tools and still, do any type of tuning if you had to do and such.
Yeah, we don't, honestly, we don't have to do much to her.
Right.
Some compression and some EQ. Her pitch is great. I'm the one that needs a little more takes and a little more love. But no, to be honest, we probably played Kerosene 3 times. Probably take 2 is the one on the record, and her vocals are all from singing along with the band. And that's it.
After verse 1, we go straight into the official chorus 1 or chorus 2, however you want to look at it. And he said, "I'm a match. She's kerosene. She's going to burn down everything. She's an arsonist in her pastime, and I've been burned for the last time. Time, 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 whoa, I've been burned for the last time. Time, 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 whoa, I've been burned for the last time." Here, Kevin, when it hits the time, 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 whoa part, there's some padded ooze, some vocals, and some organ pads while the organ's still doing the upbeats.
Yep.
And I've been burned for the last time. Time, whoa. I've been burned for the last time. Whoa. I've been burned for the last time.
It's really cool. Whose idea was it for those vocal pads?
The ooze was Amy. And speaking of production and just interesting little factoids, is those ooze were in every course. And the guy who ended up mixing the album, who Tom Lord Alge, amazing mixer. We had sent out this song to 5 people, and when we found out he was one of them, we were so excited. I don't want to say we didn't even listen to the other ones, but we didn't listen to the whole thing because his was so good. We're like, if he's gonna mix the record, like we're so stoked.
Yeah.
But he just muted him in the first chorus. You know, he made that executive decision to help the song build, and I think that's a hallmark of like a great creative mixer to be like, you know what, you don't need him here yet. So, but yeah, those were her ideas to throw the ooze in, and the organs in every chorus though. Yeah.
I am so glad you brought that up. Mixers do not get enough credit for that. The good ones, you know, when you get to a level of Tom Lord-Alge or his brother Chris Lord-Alge or some of these Andy Wallace, these guys that mix these huge records, they put their names on stuff. And if they're going to put their name on it, they want it to be right. And sometimes, like you said, they make that executive decision. And in this case, you heard it back, and your artistic merit wasn't tarnished or anything. You didn't feel like, why the hell do you do that? You think it made it a better song, that it built better that way.
It helps to have other people that we really respect be able to like add creative input and validate ideas in that way, because we don't go into the studio thinking we know it all. Like that's why we love working with Tim, is like he always offers that tiebreaker vote. He offers like kind of the truth. Like we have so sometimes in the studio we'll be like, what do you think? He'll be like, do you want honest or supportive? And we're like, honest, always honest, please.
Yeah.
You know
what else? Something I meant to bring up earlier, and I want to bring up now. I'd forgotten for a moment, was what you said about Brett Gurewitz, and it's so cool that you guys had the foresight. You know, here's this guy that you respect, one of your favorite bands, who's, you know, got a great resume in his own right, is telling you this song's a hit. There's some bands that would have went back and that would have made them go, wait a second, do we have to write another bridge? Do we have to bring in the mariachi band? Do we have to bring in a horn section? Do we have to do this, do that? And you guys said, well, if he said that, it's good the way it is. We don't want to mess around with what the basic tenet and the basic idea that's already there.
Yeah, absolutely. And because of that, it was the first one finished. It was the first one that got sent out to mix. It was just like, we didn't have to think about it. It happened super easily.
Yeah. Good for you to, again, have that foresight to know. Something I hadn't mentioned, this song is, in terms of a pop hit, it's right there in almost 3 minutes, about 2 minutes and 50 seconds, which is great. Coming out of the chorus, we get into that whoa, huh, again.
Yep.
That youthful, energetic explosion. We're in verse 2. Ooh, the smoke clears out and he's been awakened. He said his life could be mine for the taking. She needs a drink, so she starts shaking and played a victim till his heart starts breaking. No real tears, because she don't mean it. This landscape used to be so scenic, and he could make it out if he could dream it. Rising up from the ash, he's a phoenix. Again, the imagery here is great. I really think that this verse is as strong as the first one. How long after, because you had that first one, how long after did it take to get this one?
This one, it was like the same kind of thing where we demoed the song, wrote the first verse that day, then we go back into the studio and we're like, okay, let's write a second verse. It came pretty easily because we had the cadence, we had the melody, we had the first verse that we'd been living with for 3 months. We knew exactly how it should flow. Go. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if you've had that issue though. Again, the first verse is so strong. I've had that before. We go to write the second one and it's just elusive. And it seems like this one kind of came pretty organically, pretty easy for you.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's not always like that. Like there's a song on our record called Broken World. We wrote like 15 verses before we landed on the verses that made the record, you know? So it's not lost on me how lucky we are to have gotten this one together as quickly as we did. It doesn't always happen like that.
Well, and a running theme on this show is amazing, great hit songs sometimes happen very quickly. Probably up to 40 or so episodes now. I've had maybe one or two where the hit song, no man, this took forever to get right. You rarely hear that. You usually hear that this idea that I got on my voice memo.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what the song was. I mean, I was actually shocked when you played that a minute ago. To be honest with you, the character of it, everything was the same. Even your pitchy notes that you
yeah. Well, we had the harmonies. Yeah, look, I'm no Pavarotti, and everybody knows that for sure.
No, it's amazing that it's that was exactly what the song ended up being. We go into chorus 3. I'm not going to read the lyric again. We got it a couple times, but chorus 3 comes in, and then we get into this musical bridge. There's a start of a bridge.
Yeah.
It's just that guitar riff, and there's some toasting. And for those that don't know what toasting is I can't do it. Maybe you can, Kevin. Can you give us?
Yeah, it's just when it's like when the track's really hype, but there's no vocals, and you just kind of do vocal percussion. Huh, huh, huh,
There you go.
Stuff. Yeah,
there you
yeah.
go. I was never a good toaster, but toasting's a very popular thing in ska music, and it works perfectly here. The guitar riff and the toasting goes on, and it's great. It's really the first time that there's a vocal break in the song, and it gives you just 12 seconds. It just gives you a little bit of relief from a vocal, and then the bridge comes in, the second half of the bridge.
Yeah.
And what's the story with this?
So this is really interesting because when I first wrote with Amy for the first time, it was like 10 years ago or more now, I guess. 2010. So we met on tour before, and we started writing together, and I was producing tracks for what was going to be like her next solo album. I was also working with Tim at the time, and I remember he was in my car one day, and I was playing him some tracks, and he's like, man, I really dig this stuff. He goes, I'd love to, write a song with her as well. And I'm like, dude, she'd be so stoked. And I remember he came to the studio, and he goes, I got an idea for you. And he played this guitar riff, and it was, you play with me, you're playing with fire. You play with me, you're playing with fire. And anyways, just kind of to fast forward quickly, we start the Interrupters. That whole solo record, it doesn't get completely scrapped, but because we farmed songs off there, like Easy on You, Gave You Everything. But Playing with Fire never got its day in the sun. So we get this song together, She's Kerosene. There's all this imagery of fire and smoke. And I remember sitting there with Amy saying, what if we did You Play With Me, You're Playing With Fire for the bridge? And she was like, yeah, totally. And then we pitched it to Tim, and Tim was like, oh my God, I totally yes, let's use that, because it's been sitting there for 10 years, and it found its home,
That is awesome. I've had that happen a couple times. Actually, we mined one of our first 7 inches. Maybe, I don't even know. Maybe we didn't even record this song. It was an old demo that we had a bridge in that song. The rest of the song was crap, but there was this golden part, that we ended up throwing on a record 10 years later after the fact.
You can't let those things go to waste as a songwriter. They're always in the back of your mind swirling around. But that was one of those things. It was kind of a no-brainer, and then, that whole vocal part just goes throughout the whole rest of the song.
But how perfect with everything, the smoke, the fire, the red, the colors, the imagery here. You play with me, you're playing with fire. That original thing that Tim had played you, how well that just worked its way into this song.
I know. And it was like one of those moments where the puzzle piece just comes together and you're like, oh, it's just a big relief.
Was there another bridge prior to that?
Never. In fact, I won't play you this part of the voice memo, but on that same voice memo I played you, eventually we discover the Playing with Fire thing as me and Amy are jamming it, and we're both like, whoa, yeah, let's do that. The chords was different though. It was over like a D major chord change. We decided to just keep the chords minor and just throw the melody over, and it worked. And we ended up tweaking it later on, because in the original demo, she had to go really low to sing that part. And then, it was one of those, we did a session after the song was mixed where we fixed 2 or 3 things. And that was one of the things, is get her in the same register as the verses. And another kind of Brett Gurwitz idea was hey, maybe you make her vocal in the bridge more in the register of the verses. That was a interesting afterthought we had, yeah.
Well, I love the bridge. Like I said, the first 12 seconds are just that guitar riff. There's some toasting going on. Then the vocal comes in, but the vocal part, you play with me, you're playing with fire, happens twice. It's only 12 seconds, but just that 24-second departure then sets you up for the 4th chorus. And now, not only are you going to hit him over the head with the 4th chorus, you're going to continue with the refrain of you play with me, you're playing with fire, with the backing vocals that are just underneath Amy's lead vocal volume-wise, and it is just awesome, man. When did the light bulb go off that we have to have that continue into the last chorus?
So in pre-production, one of our jokes is she writes the outro before she writes the chorus. Like, she always has this idea, and I'm like, that's amazing, but that sounds like a long outro fade out. So the Play With Me, Playing With Fire going in the original pre-production, I don't know if you probably notice on the album, we switch beat. We go to like this kind of like dance hall thing for a second.
Yeah,
we go
I got it here in the notes.
But
Yep.
check it out, dude. On the original pre-production, we changed the beat like 8 times, and that lasted for like a minute and a half. And then it's kind of ridiculous. And then the vocals were swirling. Like, it'd be like, you play with I'm a match, and then it'd be like time over it. And we had all 3 things going, and it was like, it was too much. But sometimes you got to go too far to figure out where the line is. And then, and then we settled on like, she really loved that like kind of rub-a-dub hit part. Boom, boom, boom. And then just going double time until the end. And then, so that's what we settled on. But yeah, we had experimented with that whole part going really long and really arty.
Well, in songwriting, we call it the train wreck, and the train wreck usually happens at the end of a song, where all this stuff comes in. And a train wreck can either be a horrible thing, or in this instance, the train wreck works. There's a lot. Yeah. There's a lot going on here, but it works. I can't imagine this last chorus not having the "You Play With Me, You're Playing With Fire." When you get to the time, whoa. The back half of the last chorus here, I called it the syncopated rhythm, where that, it's kind of like the backwards snare beat happens. So you're saying that was you experimented with a bunch of different stuff there before you settle on what's there. Yeah, well, no, what's there was there, but there was also more. And then we just ended up cutting what didn't work, because that part worked. That's a hard part to pull off live, though, that dun, while singing straight and trying to concentrate. It's like when you have to like tap your head and rub your belly at the same time. It was one of those. So you kind of touched on this a moment ago, but the song's done. You get that mix back from Tom Lord Algae. What did you think? I was in a recording session when the email came through, and I couldn't listen to it. And I sent it to Amy and the twins, and then I'm just start getting texts. Oh my God, this is amazing. This is amazing. And then I saw Tim that afternoon. He's like, dude, amazing. And I was like, I haven't heard it yet. So I put on headphones and listened to it when I got a break. And I was just like, we were literally like, no notes. We have no notes. Our only notes were we had to fix a couple things in the recording because we had done it so fast. There was just a few things that we needed to be tweaked, like that bridge vocal. The backing vocals at the end, we actually ended up beefing up and making a little more singy, just stuff like that. But pretty much that first mix he came back with he hit a home run. Home run, mix 1. We were just, can he do the whole album, please? Like, it's so good, he's just, and you guys have worked with him. I mean, you know what he brings to the table and his resume, like, great ears, amazing. So Kevin, do you remember the first time you guys played the song to a live audience and what the reaction was? I do. We played this song for the very first time. We were playing the Punk and Drublic festivals with NoFX, and the song had been out 5 days, maybe. I remember because we had to learn it. And it was like, it didn't sound as good as the rest of our set, and we were like so bummed. We're like, but the song comes out Tuesday, and then we have the show Friday, so we have to play it. You know what I mean? So you practice the hell out of it. We go to that festival with NoFX, and it was in Texas. It was like 500 degrees, and I just remember it was so hot. And we played the song, and I actually, for the first time, saw the crowd really stoked. Like, it was the best reaction we have gotten for a new song ever. Like, we did the Warped Tour after Say It Out Loud came out, and when we played the new songs, it wasn't immediate. This one was a little bit more immediate, and that was pretty cool to see. Well, that's the hallmark of a hit, my friend. And I know you know that. It's just, there's something about this song. Like I said, the first time I heard it, I absolutely loved it. And, I'm just stoked for you guys. Absolutely happy. I'd like you to leave the listeners right now with anything that you have going on solo, anything with you and Tim, production-wise, anything with the Interrupters coming up. Well, thank you so much also for saying all those kind words. We're literally the luckiest band in the world. And, like, so many bands that came before us just paved the way for us to be able to do what we do. And, it's not lost on us, like, how rare what we have is and how lucky we are to have it. So we truly are grateful. Grateful to you for having us. Grateful to everyone for listening. Just, we're stoked. But yeah, we got some stuff coming up. We have a live album
that we just finished that's going to be announced and coming out very soon, that we recorded in a city that we had never played before, and it was an incredible show, and we decided to make an album out of it. So we will have more announcements on that coming soon. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Well, can't wait to hear it. And please tell Amy, Jesse, and Justin I send my best, and I can't wait to see you all back on the road sooner than later.
Absolutely. And thank you again for having me. And yeah, everyone sends their love too. I didn't tell you that at the top, but they all told me to tell you hello and send love. So thanks again.
What's up, everybody? I am Finn McKenty, host of the Punk Rock MBA podcast, part of the Sound Talent Media podcast network. My podcast is all about doing what you love for a living, and every week I sit down and talk to people who have done exactly that. For example, musicians like Tommy from Between the Buried and Me, Matt from Periphery, Lil Lotus and Shinigami, among many others, photographers, artists, designers, YouTubers like Glenn Fricker and Sarah Dici, and I unpack exactly how they got to where they are today with the goal of helping you do the same. So if that sounds cool, you can listen and subscribe at soundtalentmedia.com, and I'll see you there.
As we near the end of the show, here's a band you might not know.
Welcome to this week's Band You Might Not Know. If you'd like your band to be considered for Chris DeMakes a Podcast, all you have to do is submit your song and bio to bandyoumightnotknow@gmail.com. This week's featured band is Kalimasi from Chicago, Illinois, featuring Sam Porter, Anthony Elliott, Wes Moore, and John Garrison. Less Than Jake did a tour with these fellas back in April of 2019. They couldn't have been a nicer bunch of guys. We went out with them and Punchline and Mest. It was a great tour. You can find their music on Spotify and Apple. And here's a snippet of their song, Trophy Deer.
Now we gotta get out. Don't wanna be a souvenir. I got my own way to go, and I hope I see you there when the smoke clears.
The Wrap with Chris and Chris.
Personally, it always adds another layer of interest for me when the person we're talking to also is a producer and an engineer and someone who mixes and can talk about that layer of songwriting as well. Most people at least have some sort of background in that if they play in a band. You know, I'm a guy who's good enough at it to make demos, whereas some of my bandmates are guys who do it for other bands, and that's great too. But it's always interesting to hear that. And what I liked hearing about the recording of She's Kerosene, which you and I both have experience with in one way or another over the course of our musical careers, is how they recorded it live. Recorded drums, bass, and guitar live, but also Amy did a vocal track live on the song that we all know and hear.
Yeah, it's definitely a different approach these days. You know, everything is, not everything, but typically done separately, typically done digital to Pro Tools or to Logic, you know, and they went straight to tape with this one, which is kind of old school, but they kind of wanted to keep it that way. That was the idea that Tim brought to them, and of course everything ends up being digital, but you still get that, you know, that warm tape sound that I think they were going for.
And there's also a sort of energy that you can't really pinpoint. It comes with that being in a room and playing together and looking at each other and seeing your drummer moving to the beat of the song and you know, looking over at your friend and you guys are playing together, and that comes through in the music. It's a sort of emotion that you can't always define, you can't always explain. But yeah, on She's Kerosene, once he said that, I'm like, yeah, that's so obvious about this song.
Well, the other thing, and I was going to get into it in the episode, and I thought, you know what, maybe I'll save it for the wrap, but I do want to mention is how unfair it is to have three siblings in the same band. Watching I'm not kidding. I've never really seen a tighter band than the Interrupters. The Jesse, the drummer, and Justin, the bass player, and Kevin, of course, all brothers. Jesse and Justin are twins, and something about coming from the same mother and father, just that internal instinct of where you're going to go musically. They are just so locked. It's amazing.
Well, not to mention they've probably been playing together. They probably all learned how to play music together, I'm assuming, and have probably been playing together since they first picked up instruments, right?
Absolutely. And I talked to Stefan Egerton from Descendants about this some time ago. He knows the kids in Hanson. I say kids, they're grown men now, from Hanson. And they live in Oklahoma where Stefan lives. And he's just like, you won't see a tighter band, three brothers in a band. It's really amazing. And I would sit there and watch them every night and just be like, my gosh, they're just unbelievably tight.
Something else that you touched on in this episode is song building. I know we've talked about this in a lot of episodes, but a great mixer, a great producer can hold things back, can hold back elements of the songs and then present them later, and it just gives it that lift. It gives it a boost when they come in. It could be a guitar riff. It could be vocal pads. There's 1,000 different things it could be, but using that tastefully and at the right moment can just take a song to the next level.
Absolutely. He had mentioned that Tom Lord-Alge, who mixed the song, that Tom held back those vocal oohs, those pads in the first chorus. He wanted to save it. He wanted to build, and that was something they had on the recording that was there. That the mixer, he made that executive decision to hold that back, and they weren't at all bummed about it. They were like, yeah, that's the right call, and that's why you pay a guy like Tom Lord-Alge to make those decisions.
That comes with experience of playing in a band too, because it's hard if something is a really cool part. It's hard to not want to do it right away and have that be a main element of the song, but to have that restraint to be able to hold off, to have it make more of an impact later in the song, that's just a cool thing that sometimes you need a producer with fresh ears on the song to be able to guide you in that direction. Them working with Tim Armstrong all the time, that also, especially for their sound, like, Tim Armstrong worked on it, and that's a great thing. You and I would both agree that that's a really great thing.
Yeah, no, it also goes back to your point about Kevin. He's a producer himself. He's an engineer, and he records. So if anyone was able to say, you know what, I think that decision was right, it would be Kevin, because there's times you get very protective as a songwriter of your songs.
Hearing Kevin talk about it, it almost sounds like, in a way, that Tim is like a fifth member of the band, which, hey, you couldn't ask for a better fifth member than Tim Armstrong. And that leads me to my last point about this that I wanted to talk about. It's kind of funny. I can't believe we haven't talked about this yet. Maybe we haven't done a lot of ska songs so far to be able to talk about this, but I wanted to talk about, and it's funny because I just recently learned this term and you used it, and I was like, oh, okay. I heard it in reference to the song Pass the Dutchie by Musical Youth, but talking about toasting, and I never knew that that's what that was called. I may have called that like ska noises or like something like that, but we're talking about the or like those things you do in rhythm to the song, or the pick it up, or things like, does pick it up count as toasting?
I wouldn't count that. I'd count that.
Okay.
I can't even do it. That's why I had Kevin do it. I just embarrassed myself. But yeah, that stuff is toasting, and it goes all the way back to, like, I think the Jamaican ska roots. To be honest with you, I don't know the exact origin, but and you may never have thought of this, but the band The Toasters, that's where their name comes from.
I never would have known that. And when I was doing the research for that Musical Youth, you know what I'm talking about.
Of course, Pass the Dutchie.
Yeah. See, that's not the definition that I thought, like the reggae definition of it. I thought it was almost kind of like spoken word rap or something was the explanation I had for it. But it makes way more sense what you're saying. I was going off of like Google and whatever.
I don't know. Now that I truly think about it, maybe that was like a spoken word thing. Because when you toast somebody, you're giving them kind of accolades. You're giving them cheers. So maybe we'll have to do a little more research here. Maybe we're talking out of our ass. But I always thought toasting was the that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I love that stuff, dude. You guys, less than Jake for being a third wave ska band. I don't think you guys really do that. Do you do that at all?
No, we stop shy of the toasting. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No toasting from the Florida bands. So hey, man, after 39 episodes, I gotta say, I'm actually stumped on trying to find a way to going from talking about toasting into this month's fundraiser. And
you're stumped?
I am. The closest thing I could think was to try to toast about this month's fundraiser. The closest thing I could think was to go, help a dog, help a dog, help a dog. I don't know. Something along the lines of pick it up and help a dog, but I got nothing, man. I got nothing. Just tell him about Biggie's Bullies. Just tell him, man.
All right. This month's fundraiser is Biggie's Bullies. They're a foster home-based rescue founded in 2011 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Their mission is to rescue and rehome pit bull-type dogs in Pittsburgh and the surrounding areas. So please head over to ChristaMakesADifference.com and give whatever you can to this wonderful organization. They do a lot of good work.
Help a dog, help a dog, help a dog. Hut. I got nothing, man. ChristaMakesADifference.com. Go donate and help the fucking dogs.
You put that sample in a Punchline song. It's not going in a Less Than Jake song, pal.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. I'm cool with that. What else do we got to talk about before we go here, man?
Something else I do want to talk about is head over to ChristaMakes.com. That'll redirect you to my YouTube page. And please subscribe. I'd love to have you stop by. Lots of great animation by Chris. Chris does all kinds of animation and cool little videos on there you can check out. I got my custom songs there, a bunch of Less Than Jake videos, and a whole host of other things. A lot of custom songs have been put to picture videos and videos by the fans I made them for. And if you'd like a custom song, head over to ChristaMakes@gmail.com. Shoot me an email, and I will send you all the info on that.
You should get a song from Chris. I didn't get a song from you yet. But I feel like you owe me one.
I need to write you like 40 songs for all the editing you do and all the work you put into these podcasts. That's what I need to do.
Yeah, join the Facebook group too. Come talk to us.
Absolutely. The Facebook group's a lot of fun. So head over there and come say hi. I want to thank this week's guest, Mr. Kevin Bivona from The Interrupters. It was a lot of fun speaking with you. And thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next week.
Hey there, I am Johnny Christ from Avenged Sevenfold, and I've got a podcast called Drinks with Johnny you're going to want to check out. I sit down with a bunch of different people from all different walks of life, from professional wrestlers to actors, comedians, fighters, musicians, everything in between. I'm just looking to make some friends and have a good time doing it. So if that sounds like something you're into, go check out Drinks with Johnny, streaming everywhere now.